You can tell a lot about a person from their search history. And if that's the case, South Africans are curious people. They're interested in global affairs and love their sport, music and beer. The 2020 Google Trends for the year have been published and makes for some interesting reading. Unsurprisingly, the coronavirus was the top trending search for the year. Lockdown and load shedding also made the list, as did the cigarette ban. Another top search question was how to apply for an unemployment grant. But it was also a year many people dreamt about exploring, with trips to Mauritius featuring at the top of the list. To give a clearer picture of what mattered most to South Africans this year, at least as far as their Google searches go, I'm joined by Mish Atagana, Head of Communications and Public Affairs from Google at Google South Africa. Mish, thank you for your time and thank you so much for joining us on Weekend Dawn. Now, what do these 2020 Google Trends talk about, or what do they say about South Africans?
I think you summed it up so well, and thank you so much for having me. It really is about a country that is curious, a country that is interested, and absolutely global affairs, but also looking at home has shown up a lot on this list. If I look at the past 6 years, about 4 or 5 years ago, you would have seen a lot more global affairs than what's happening at home. But this year, we've seen people look introspective and also look outside, because when people are told they can't do something, they want to do it more. So the travel searches show that as well. People wanted to explore even beyond, the confines of this planet, with trips to Mars being on that list as well. I think that, when we look at what's happening in the world, it made sense. Coronavirus was number one on the top trending searches. And, there's a correlation between coronavirus and the top question asked around how to apply for unemployment grant, because a lot of people have lost their jobs. Businesses have had to shut down in this period because of the nature of this virus.
And just to add on that, the fact that people were asking about how to apply for the COVID relief fund, etc., what does that say about joblessness in South Africa? It seems as though finding a job is a big problem in South Africa.
I mean, even before, COVID-19, the unemployment rate in South Africa was, not great, especially when you look at the youth. So I think that's definitely something. I think it's something that analysts have talked about many times in terms of the unemployment rate in this country. And I don't think, COVID, as in many other countries, really helped with the economy. And that's a problem. And you can see that people are trying to figure out what is the best way for me to survive 2020.
Let's talk about the public figures and political figures that were Googled, specifically in the USA. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and even the likes of Kim Jong-un. South Africans are Googling a lot more international or public figures on an international spectrum. What does that say about South Africans? Do they not care much about the leaders in South Africa?
Well, I mean, they do, because on that list, Ace, Stella, and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is on that list as well. Bekele is on that list. So there is interest internally, but I think this is also a year that international politics was very interesting and exciting to watch. If you look at the U.S. elections, and Kamala Harris, for a lot of people, this is the first Black or woman of color to be vice president in the United States. And that is not only an American phenomenon, that is a global phenomenon, especially for women of color everywhere, to kind of look at this woman and be, maybe I too can achieve whatever that dream is. So it makes sense that people wanted to know more about her and find out about her. And Boris Johnson, I think, for Boris Johnson, there's been a lot of in and out of conversation about the UK, with Brexit happening, with COVID, with Boris getting coronavirus. So there's been a lot of conversation with UK politics as well. So I think that also influenced the list. But Kim Jong-un, that's a global search as well. And on the global list, he also comes up on the global list. So it's definitely a combination of both, I would say.
And then how different are our Google searches in South Africa versus countries in and around the African continent, for instance?
Yeah, so if I look at the Nigeria search, for instance, there's a couple of similarities in terms of the top trending searches of what Nigerians are searching. And I think globally, we see this, everybody in the world was interested in coronavirus this year, right? So when I go through what other African countries are interested in. I see that similar things, U.S. elections, coronavirus, Joe Biden also comes up on lists. I mean, what I did find quite interesting in the questions list for Nigeria is the top question is who is the new president in the USA, and how to make hand sanitizer also comes up on that list, which also comes up on the South Africa list. So definitely some similarities. If we look at the Kenya trends, for instance, there's also a little bit of similarity, but also there's some differences with what Kenyans were interested in terms of their top trending searches as well. So, for instance, the questions that people are asking again, how to make sanitizer is also in there. How to lose weight fast is on there. How to get a baby boy is on the Kenya list of questions, which is really interesting to see that. And then, EPL standings is the number one thing that Kenyans are interested in from a general search point of view. US elections also coming up, and then thank you coronavirus, help us is also on that list. So definitely some similarities and some changes as well. Kim Jong-un, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden and Boris Johnson also on the Kenyan list as well.
The top Google searches that I saw when I went down the list was something I was probably guilty of as well during the hard lockdown, and that was how to make banana loaf as well as pineapple beer. Was that trend also quite similar in other African nations?
Well, I think banana bread is a global. I feel the whole world competitively baked banana bread this year, so that I'm sure will show up on other lists as well. However, I think the the how to make pineapple beer might be a South Africa specific question because of our the prohibition, the temporary prohibition we'd had earlier in the year due to the alcohol ban. So the alcohol beer, I didn't even know there was such a thing as alcohol beer until I saw this. So that was interesting. But if I'm looking at the Kenya list right now, and Kenyans they're not that interested in how to make banana bread. They want to know how to make pancakes and how to make ice cream, but definitely not banana bread from that point of view. So I think maybe South Africans, from an Africa point of view, was very, very interested in the banana bread trend as well. If I look at the global list, pizza is on that list. How to make pizza, how to make sour bread, banana bread does come on the global list.
All right, I think it's been an interesting search history for South Africans. Mish Atagana, thank you for your time, the Head of Communications and Public Affairs at Google South Africa. Mish, before I let you go though, if you look at other questions that have been asked outside of coronavirus, especially on the Google platform, if it wasn't for coronavirus, what would have trended specifically in South Africa when people were asking questions?
Well, I don't actually know if that's a question I can really answer, right? Because it's kind of hard to say what would happen if coronavirus wasn't there. I do, however, think certain questions on the list will still be there. So things like where does vanilla flavoring come from? That may still be on the list. Why were cornflakes invented? That was on the list last year, so that might still be on the list again. Things like why chainsaws were invented. There was a TikTok trend that happened about chainsaws and things like that. So I don't know. So it's really hard to say what would have been on the list if coronavirus didn't happen.
Yeah, I guess coronavirus did dominate Google across South Africa and across the globe. Again, Mish Atagana, thank you for your time, and thank you so much for joining us on Weekend Dawn, talking about the trends on Google when it comes to the search history for South Africans.